I wanted to start off with, a lot has been made, of your guys' story and how Jefferson has taken you under his wing, both musically and paternally, and been kind of a guide. But to flip things a bit, I'm curious to start. Jefferson, what have you learned from your bandmates through this experience?
Um, I've just learned to trust them. I think they have matured so much as players. I don't have to give them practically any instruction about how songs should go. I just trust them to play, and they're just, Lila has, gosh, almost 10 years of experience drumming now. Started when she was seven, roughly,
8.
8, and Ella picked up bass around age 13, and now she's 22. So, but my concern back then was if we're going to have a band, am I going to be able to handle all the guitar parts? Because there are a lot of
Hmm.
times guitars, and I wasn't known as a lead guitar player, so I had to sort of start from scratch on leads. I had a few things up my sleeve, but they've caused me to up my game. So, in order to
Ah,
not lose my chops, I practice constantly without them. So,
okay.
yeah, that's where they've sent me. But as human beings, they've taught me plenty too, because they're wise beyond their years.
Hmm. Yeah, and I'm wondering also if it, because you had a lot of experience, but sometimes when you're around people that are, especially learning the instrument, it kind of, I don't know, it forces you to look at things in a new way, in a fresh way. And I'm wondering if that happened with you.
Yeah, well, I think what we did in order to make us sound cohesive, even when they were starting out, was I stressed to Lila to keep it simple. Don't try to do too much. And Lila would just do that. In fact, I think Lila didn't even play the cymbals really, like the first year. It was all kick drum and snare, and occasional tom. Ella, I have to say, because she had a background in guitar, I was her guitar teacher right after her dad died, and
Hmm.
she kind of just picked it up pretty fast. So, I mean, I found this video the other day that I had not seen, one of the very earliest videos of Ella playing bass, and she was playing "Picture Book" by the Kinks, which is not an easy song. And I think it was maybe was I don't know if it was the three of us, but I know for sure I was playing with her, and I just thought, my gosh, this kid was fairly advanced right out of the chute. I think because her dad was a bass player, in addition to being a drummer, there was a lot of DNA going on there.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always say Lila's the one who's worked for their skills. Like Lila's the one that's practiced hard. I think I'm really lucky that I think I'm just kind of am naturally talented, so I don't have to work very hard. But I admire
Oh.
how hard Lila and Jefferson work.
You're you're naturally what?
Talented,
Oh,
like
okay.
yeah,
I'm sure
like
this is poking at each other. Okay.
Hmm.
yeah. But no, yeah, those two work so hard, and that's what I admire. I admire their work ethic a lot,
Mm.
and I think that's better than being just good at it.
Yeah.
And I mean, and then it's especially interesting to me because in any band, there's always a really tight connection between the drummer and the bass player. And I'm wondering, I don't know if there's any way that you would know, but if just being siblings, if just having the shared experience of learning it kind of at the same time, made it such a tight connection that you guys, there's a lot of unspoken communication or where the other is going.
Yeah,
I'd
I
say
think
pretty
we.
much.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
do have a lot of
Um,
unspoken. Yeah, you go ahead, Lila.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, we are sisters, and all our life we've been really close and have considered ourselves best friends. And I think that really helps with our connection musically as well. And while sometimes we're kind of at odds with each other, we make up fast, and you know, we know we know what we expect from the other.
Mm.
Well, if you make up fast, then you're better than a lot of bands out there. Which
Yeah.
Yeah, year-long grudges. Yeah, that's
Yeah, or end up in litigation in some form or another. And okay, so admittedly, you're the two of the probably the youngest musicians I've ever interviewed, and I'm especially curious, given the stage you are in your life, as you are physically growing and changing, how has that affected how you play your specific instruments?
Well, when I started, um, it was very difficult for me to play the Fender basses that I had access to just because they were too heavy for me.
Mm.
So I learned how to play bass mostly on a Hofner bass, like what Paul McCartney had.
Beetle bass. Yeah, the Beetle bass.
Yeah, but over time, I've gotten to a point where I'm physically strong enough to actually wield my instrument in a way I want to. So
Mm.
that's really expanded my abilities, and I think maybe has made me a better player, just getting physically bigger and stronger to do what I need to do.
Yeah, I would think it would be, just because as your hands and fingers, elongate, it must be easier to get different things on the neck and such like that than it was when you started out, I'm imagining.
Yeah, I have pretty small hands. So it's better now, but especially when I started, it was kind of difficult for me to like. I couldn't do like a scale very well just because I couldn't reach that far.
But now it's no problem.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, Lila, how have you adapted your kit as you've grown?
I'd say pretty similarly to Ella. Growing up has had a lot to do with how I've changed as a musician. I mean, when I started, I was 8 years old, so I was pretty tiny. It was hard to reach everything on the kit. And, I had to make a lot of adjustments because we had a kit set up in our house already, but it was set up for a full grown adult man. So little tiny 8-year-old me had to had to move things around a lot and shorten the throne and such. Um, but yeah, I mean, as a basically physically full grown 17-year-old, I found how I like to set up my drums, and I'd I'd say I'd say knowing how you like your setup of your instrument and gear, I think that is one of the most important things, and it makes you play better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, when Lila was little, it was all of us helping Lila set up the drums, just because Lila couldn't do it at that age and size. But now, if I try to help Lila, it's like, we're gonna do it my way. You need you to leave.
But back in those days, we were up against the clock. It's like not only did we have to set our stuff up, Ella and I, maybe even the PA. Lila was lagging behind, and so Laura, my wife, would help, and Ella would help too. And I would as time would allow, but I usually had several hats on. So yeah, just the fact that these kids are big enough now to carry their own stuff around, and maybe even some of mine. That just
Yeah.
Yeah, safely out of those child labor laws, that
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
would prohibit them.
yeah.
And I'm also wondering, in terms of the evolution, this, being your second album, and are you guys more comfortable with the recording process? And how would you say you're a different band going into this second album than you were with your first?
Hmm. Um, I thought we were a pretty tight band going in on the last album because we had everything done in one or two takes, and this was at a pretty, you know, beyond professional and very renowned studio, which with Mitch Easter at his place, with Don Dixon producing, and but now, after another 3 years of playing, I don't know how to say it. I mean, how can you continue to get tighter and tighter, but it's actually possible. And the only way I know is just how it feels on stage. But sometimes when I videotape our shows, I can kind of hear for myself and see with my own eyes just how effortless they make it sound. So just their hard work and just their natural talent is all coming together. And, you would not, if you close your eyes, you would not realize they were 17 and 22.
Hmm. Yeah. And then at the time we're recording this, you guys just released the first single from the new album called "So Much Joy," which I contend might be the first happy high school memory song I've ever heard. And but it's interesting because given that it's about high school graduation and acceptance and just this wonderful feeling associated with it, in other people's hands, especially nowadays, you'd think that topic alone would have made it a very schmaltzy kind of song, and almost popish. But
Mhm.
this one, it's still got this kind of grittiness to it. Like I saw in another piece, Jefferson referred to the Yardbirds influence that you had when you were, coming up with the melodies and such. And so, first I'm wondering, would you say gritty happiness is an apt description of the song and maybe even the feeling behind the song?
Ella, can I
Yeah.
mention one thing first and turn it over to you?
Yeah.
I think knowing that the lyrics were given to me by Ella and I did the music, um, I wasn't even thinking about. I mean, I was thinking about, I want that '60s sound and sort of a Yardbirds type feel, maybe even a Smithereens kind of sound. But at the same time, I think it's coming from a place of despair, from despair to joy, rather than just saying I'm happy and I know it.
Mhm.
So Ella, you want to run with that?
Yeah, yeah. That song definitely came from a place. I didn't get too into this in the description, but that happiness came right after the death of both of my grandparents. And I
Mhm.
had taken care of my sick grandmother for about a year at that point. Like, I was the one who stayed all night with her and made sure she had everything she needed. So that was like Jeff said, I was coming from a place of really deep sadness and grief. And then I graduated high school and was surrounded by joy and love for me. And I wasn't bogged down in the pain that I had been going through. So I think the song kind of reflects that big jump from sadness to joy.
Mhm. Yeah, because it's not like a unicorns and rainbows kind of thing. It's,
Yeah.
again, it's like, oh, I'm feeling these things and I'm grateful for it, but it's not just whitewashing over troubled
Mhm.
times or any of that kind of thing, which gives it, I don't know, a maturity that, again, belies your particular
Mhm.
age. Um, and then I'm also curious because you wrote it, but Lila sings it. And
Mhm.
so when you're writing it, do you have her voice in mind for how it's going to sound, or do you just write and let her work out the vocals?
With that one in particular, I kind of wrote that one without any music in mind. I just kind of wrote it like you would write a poem or something. And I didn't
Hmm.
have any inkling of what kind of music I wanted for it. I just handed it off to Jeff. And so I think Jeff, just knowing what Lila's good at, tailored it to what Lila can do.
Mm.
Yeah, when I think about arrangements, I do think about maybe who should sing something. And to this point, gosh, maybe three out of the four songs Ella has written, Lila has the vocal in it. And then, of course, Lila and I sort of have trading off vocals in a few songs. In fact, a few songs actually sound like duets with Lila and I. But yeah,
Hmm.
we kind of like doing that. The band did that. Robbie Robertson would write a song, but it wasn't until they did the arrangement that they realized, like, who's going to sing it? Or maybe there were times where a song was written with a certain voice in mind. I don't know, but with us, I always like to see if Lila can sing a song because I just like Lila's voice, and I feel like in this band they are far more interesting than I am. So
And then, Lila, have you ever had to come back and say, I feel odd singing this line, or this is a tricky thing for me to try and work in while playing drums, and or is it just usually pretty, a good fit?
I mean, I definitely have difficulties, but it takes a lot of studying the lyrics and working with Jeff while we play together. And you know, Jeff has brought a lot of songs to me where he's like, "Oh, I really want you to sing this," and I'm hesitant, and I'm like, "I don't really want to sing this," but it turns out actually to be a pretty good choice. And once I get used to the song, it doesn't bother me as much.
Yeah, a
Yeah,
lot of
most
times.
of the songs you vetoed are covers, not
Yeah,
songs that
yeah.
we've written.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the key of the song has a lot to do with it too. We the one song that Ella and I worked on and took a really long time to finish was called "Things You Threw Away," which was I have to say I think we have a happy album, but at least two songs came from a sad place, and "Things You
Mhm.
Threw
Yeah.
Away" was because it was her about her late father and going through the storage shed, and seeing a lot of his things, just mundane things like receipts and notebooks and
Hmm.
pieces of paper. But um, we kind of the key took forever to arrive at because there was a time where it looked like Ella was going to sing it, and then
Hmm.
Ella playing the parts just didn't seem to be something that she could pull off because it's got a lot of chords in it. Unlike
Mhm.
most of our songs are not chordy, but this one
Hmm.
was, and so it ended up we went with Lila, and we found a key for Lila, and that's kind of how that one turned out.
Yeah, and I was wondering, I mean, because that one, as you said, really personal. Is it difficult to perform live?
Not really, honestly. I think when I perform, I'm in such a headspace of let me focus on what I need to do that I'm not bothered. I only get bothered if I see people getting emotional in the audience, and then I'm like, oh, now I'm emotional. But playing the music, no, it's not super hard for me.
Okay.
For me, it's more technically a little difficult because that song is kind of a bit difficult to sing, but I manage. And sometimes in our set list, Jeff will put that song right next to the other song that I sing I find very difficult to sing, so I have to like take big sips of water between songs.
Yeah.
But I guess like Ella, I'm just kind of in the headspace focusing on what I need to do in the song.
Okay. Okay. And yeah, I mean, I would agree that for most part it is a happy album, and along those lines, I particularly like the uh, title track, the Lemon Drop Hammer, just because it seems like one of those quirky things where no one can make a song out of this line, but it's like, oh no, this is actually a really fun tune.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm wondering how much of that was like the challenge and how much of it was just inspiration.
Um, it was like to me, it was like a project because I had the title for quite a bit, but we didn't have a song for it. I thought we need one more song for this album. We were shooting for 12, and I thought one more. So the week of, maybe even 2 days before the studio, I sat down and wrote the lyrics. And the lyrics actually came pretty fast because I tried to just present a mood of somebody who's difficult, and I'm calling them a lemon drop hammer. Like you're breaking up my candy, man.
Yeah.
So that's really where it came from, and it was inspired by my wife Laura trying to break up some candy that had melted together. She wanted some lemon drops to eat, and she was banging on it with a hammer. And I heard it from another room, and I went, "What are you doing?" She said, "Well, I'm trying to have some lemon drops." So things that happen in the home do inspire the band for songs for sure.
Right, right. And well, that also makes me, wonder because, as you say, you are a quote family band. But I'm wondering, does the group dynamic change once you're behind the instruments?
I would say certainly. I mean, we're pretty jovial when we're just hanging out, but we definitely try to be really disciplined with our music. Like we don't we do play around a little bit, but we really do try to like when we're practicing or playing a show, be serious, do what we need to do, give a good performance. make sure we're practicing our weak points. So yeah, I'd say it does change quite a bit.
Mhm.
You know, when we're between songs, I think we keep things loose, not only for the audience, but for ourselves. If someone's having a difficult time, we just press on. We played at the Eno River one year at the festival, and like 6 times during the set, the power went off for some reason.
Mhm.
So we would just I said, look, the idea is to keep playing, even if we're not plugged in. And at one
Mhm.
point, we walked in front of the PA and played just so the people close by could hear the unplugged guitars.
Yeah.
And we got through it. And I think it proved that these kids, this is like maybe 3 years ago,
Mhm.
can make a show out of even having adversity. And it was surely memorable. We don't want to go through that again, but uh, I think people appreciated it, that we just didn't act like fussy babies that, oh, this terrible thing
Mhm.
happened. We just kept
Yeah.
going.
And then, but also I was curious about, again, the whole paternal aspect of the relationship and guiding through things. But when you're on stage, is it all you guys all equal? Does it just become, okay, we're not as much the family hierarchy, we're a band?
I would say to
Ella?
some extent, we do defer to Jeff on a lot of musical things because he just has the experience over us. So like if he is like, "Hey, I don't think this is working," we tend to trust him on that. But we tend to be pretty good about like if somebody needs to change the tempo of what they're playing or something like that. We're pretty good about listening to each other regardless of who is who in the family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Ella is getting better at reading the audience. I can kind of see them maturing as, stage people, performers. And, like, oh, maybe we shouldn't play this one. That would be like the kind of thing I would say, maybe we need to pick it up and skip to this next song because I think they're ready to dance, that
Mm-hmm.
they're up and they're ready to let's play something energetic and we'll come back to this. So, and I think Lila has done the same thing. Um, so yeah, I can see, and yeah, I think we try to present ourselves as three equals on stage. We don't. I mean, yeah, people see me as the dad, but I mean, I like to back away from the mic when Lila is singing if I'm not helping because I want Lila. You're the star of this song. But
Mm.
we're here. It's not like they're doing what I say because I'm the music director. That's not how we do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get it. And, just something to keep in mind. One of the bands I work with is this band Cowboy Mouth, where the drummer's the lead singer, and he has the drum kit all the way at the front of the stage because he got tired of being in back when he was in other bands. So keep that in mind. It's an option. Just
Yeah.
Yeah. Are they from Texas or New Orleans? I'm trying to remember them.
New Orleans.
Okay, I played with them once at
Yeah.
my band. I have
Oh, okay.
a grown-up band. We played with them at I think it was either Local 506 or Cat's Cradle about 10 years ago. And
Okay.
yeah, that
Okay.
was pretty cool. We made some
Yeah.
friends that night.
Right. And going back to the album, there's some really cool songs that really stuck out to me. One, if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, Naoma,
Yeah,
if I have
yeah,
that name right.
yeah.
And what grabbed your attention is, particularly at the end when suddenly there's all this backwards masking going on, which sounds really cool. And I'm wondering what inspired that decision.
Um, that actually was Don Dixon's idea. Um, the song, I guess I'll have to give a little background, is about a friend I had over 30 years ago. And her name is Naomi, but everybody calls her Naoma, and I have no idea why. And I wrote that song, you know, 31 years ago, whatever. And my grown-up band actually recorded it. And one of the things about Ella and Lila is they really do, and it's it's very appreciated that they like my old material that I've done with my bands. And of course, Ella now plays in my grown-up band. Our bass player died, and Ella took his place. So sometimes Ella will suggest, "Why don't we play this?" And I said, you two do such a good job on that live that maybe that's a contender for the album. So that's how that came about. But yeah, the backwards thing. Don did that on 2 songs actually. I think Mimi had the same. Naoma
okay.
ends like that, and Mimi begins. So we came up with the idea
Yeah.
that maybe 2 should be back to back, almost like a suite of songs. But yeah, it is. I liked it a lot, and to me, I like it when a producer or a mastering engineer comes up with an idea like that, and I was like, yeah, I'm totally in favor of that. So let's do that.
No, that was cool. And then another thing that stuck out was walking between raindrops, which I think is a really cool line. It's just great imagery and a great lyric. And I'm wondering what was the impetus for that.
My wife, Laura, thinks that should be one of our singles, digital singles. So I tell her that after the album comes out, I'll definitely press the button for that. But yeah, that was another one that was from my old days that they felt like would be worthy. But the funny thing is, I wrote it in 1992 as sort of a jazzy song with minor sevenths. I don't know. I'm trying to think. No, major sevenths. Wrote it like that. And I said, it's a good song, and a good song can probably stand up to a rearrangement. So let's try this. Instead of the key of C, let's try it in A, and let's pump it up. Let's make it a significant rock song, and it has some giddy up in it. And they did a great job on that. And Lila does some terrific backing vocals on it. Trying to think. I guess that's all about that song, other than the fact that I got the title. When I saw the movie for the first time in the theater, the JFK movie about the assassination that Oliver Stone wrote,
Yeah,
I think the prosecutor was getting frustrated at one of the potential witnesses, and he was just saying, "These guys just walk between raindrops. They can't get wet even when it rains." So, yeah.
Okay. All right. I didn't remember that line from that movie. All right. And then Lila, you have, it's the tough part being the drummer because you, especially when it comes to setup and takedown, like number one, do you ever think, oh, I wish I had just chosen something easier like their other guys have, who just take it out of the case and plug in?
I guess not particularly. There's no denying that the drum setup and takedown is difficult and time consuming. But I'm really happy I chose drums, and I don't think I'd change it for anything. But yeah, while it is difficult, it's worth it.
Mm-hmm. And then, but on the flip side, also, do you also have an eye toward maybe eventually expanding the kit? Because right now it seems like you got a snare, a hi-hat, a floor tom, and a crash, I think.
I have a rack tom as well.
Oh, okay.
It's probably out of the picture in some of the videos, but yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't thought about it too much. I'm really happy with my setup, and it accommodates what we need to play. I don't think I really need much else for right now, but you never know.
You might
It
need a
depends.
cowbell stand because I
Yeah,
know you
there
just
you go.
put it on the bass drum.
She has done cowbell on a few songs. It all depends on whether it fits in the van or not. If it won't fit in the van, then it just can't go unless you strap it to the roof. Yeah.
I guess my secret.
Yeah. So
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so probably not a gong anytime soon.
I'd like that actually. It might work for like jokes and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And I'm always curious about this because from what I understand, Ella, you legitimately wanted to play the bass. I mean, because there's so many musicians I've interviewed, bassists, who started off as guitar players and then like they took one lesson and ended up in a band as the bassist, and then that became their route. But you specifically sought that out, and I'm curious, what was the allure of the bass that pulled you away from the guitar?
honestly don't remember. I just remember going to Jeff one day and being like, I want to learn bass. I think I just wanted to play something, and I had gotten frustrated with guitar and piano. I had taken piano lessons as a child for probably a decade, like a long time.
Mhm.
And I just felt like I wasn't very good at either. And I was just like, show me how to play the bass. I want to give this a shot. Maybe this is what is good for me. And it turned out it was something that was really good for me. It was something that I felt confident with. And I think I really prefer more of a support role in a band than a leading role.
Mhm.
Um, so that's why I think the bass worked out for me.
Okay. Okay.
I think Ella is being a little modest there because I do think she's pretty good on guitar and also piano. In fact, there have been times where I thought maybe you moved to piano and I moved to bass, and we'll have a song or two in that way. But I don't know. Okay, you're
I
saying
think
no.
you're overestimating my
Okay,
abilities.
yeah. Well, I like drumming too, so I always thought it'd be fun to have Lila learn guitar, and I'll go back to drums. So
Oh,
um,
okay.
I
I
wouldn't
don't
mind
think that's
switching it
gonna
up.
happen either.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to have a different size drum throne, I'm guessing, though.
Yeah.
True, true. I don't know. Her legs are probably as long as mine now, which is kind of strange.
Oh,
When
okay.
when,
Okay.
when we started the band, Lila was so small that Lila had to ride in the car seat to gigs. That's
Yeah, and
how
you're like
Uh,
5'8"
yeah,
now, right, Lila?
Yep,
five
5'8".
Yeah.
5'8".
Yeah,
Yeah,
roughly.
No.
and
okay.
I'm sure. So yeah.
And then, you guys had to, because of all that you've endured, you guys have had to grow up a lot faster than, I would argue, many people in your generation, your age range. Um, because of that, has it been easier for you to talk to and relate to other musicians than it is your peers who maybe don't play?
Honestly, I've always been told and always felt like I relate to people a lot older than me than I do to my peers. So even before my dad died, I do remember like adults would just like talking to me, and I know adults tend to not like talking to little kids. So I think I've just always kind of been like that, and it's helped me be a good musician because most of the people we work with are people that are Jeff's age range. So
Hmm.
I've had to make sure that I know what I'm doing with that. So I think for me it's just been pretty natural. I can't speak for you, Lila, but that's how I feel.
Lila,
I
what's
feel
your
kind
take on?
I feel kind of similarly, I was always told as a kid, like, oh, you're an old soul, because like Ella, I felt comfortable talking to adults and could make conversation with adults. But I also, I think I found a really great community of people my age and peers that I can relate to. But there's definitely some differences, and I often do feel quite different from my peers in some ways because of just the way I've grown up. But
Hmm.
it's not a negative thing, and I'm really lucky I've gotten some experiences that many kids my age don't get to.
They were really nurtured by the community after their dad died. I remember there was such an outpouring of affection and support for the family, whether it was the neighbors on either side or on our street, but fellow musicians, people that I knew, and yeah. So I think they felt like maybe there's a nice blanket around them for a good while, and I think that helped a lot. They weren't in this alone, but
Hmm.
it's really different than a lot of other kids at that age.
Yeah. And another interesting aspect, I would say, and I'd put this under the heading of musical maturity. In today's day and age, when you see a lot of, I don't use, I don't like the term kids because it sounds like I'm talking down, but I'm old. So, but you see kids, younger people, and they're musicians and they're posting it. A lot of it is based on showing off, for lack of a better term. It's the slap bass solo, it's the drum solo, it's how fast can I play this and all this. And I think that's part of what makes this band cool, is just that you guys can really lock in and hold down a groove, which from what I've seen, there's a lot of people that are good at the flash aspect and getting views on YouTube, but that can't make it through an entire song necessarily with a steady groove. And I'm curious, you know, do you feel at all pulled toward that direction, being, you know, kids of the internet age, or was that just never in your mindset?
I mean, sometimes I have gotten down on myself because I don't have like those slap bass chops, or like funk bass chops. But I think ultimately I find it more rewarding to be part of a band and be like a member that actually contributes to something really good, instead of just knowing for myself that I can do something hard. I actually kind of, funnily enough, I got in an argument with someone in my class about this today. He said,
Oh,
bass is the easiest instrument. And I said, maybe, but it's really hard to be a good bass player that can play
yes.
with a band.
Yeah.
Um, I feel similarly, and it's like, I've seen like drum tutorial videos and like all these like crazy young drum prodigies who, though are maybe technically more skilled than I am in some aspects, I kind of just stopped caring because I like what I do, and I I bring something to the table for this band, and that's what I need to do. I don't need to be like who's the guy from Led Zeppelin, the drummer?
John Bonham.
John
John
Bonham.
Bonham.
I don't need to be John Bonham to be a good drummer, or Dave Grohl. I like what I do and I'm happy with what I do. I don't care that I can play Wipeout. I like drumming.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Lila serves the song, and so does Ella, and I think that's the whole point. So we're able to have a groove for the entire song, and we're not pausing for somebody to show off.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, and that also makes me wonder. I mean, to give you credit, Jefferson, and I'm curious how you've kept it from becoming, for lack of a better term, a chore, if only because history is littered with things that started off as fun that parents then ruined for their children, and and but it seems like the enthusiasm is still there. They haven't lost that sense of fun. How have you, I don't know, encouraged them, but not, gone overboard?
yeah. Well, it seems like they love this band as much as they did when we started, which is really warms my heart. But I think it all comes down to they are best friends. They really are. And they're my favorite people. I fell in love with these kids before I fell in love with their mom, you
Hmm.
know, and and then when I did fall in love with their mom, it really started feeling like a family. And I'd never been married. In fact, today is my wedding anniversary with Laura.
Oh,
We got married 10 years
nice.
ago and so as our story goes, you can see how long. So the band happened like basically 2 years. Well, late in the year after we got married, and but yeah, they're my favorite people. I don't go out as much as I used to because I love being with my family. Of course, now we have these two massive dogs that are like as big as I am each. And they're only like a year and a half. So I love being with them, my dogs. You know how Paul McCartney was probably criticized in the early days after he left the Beatles. He was just such a family guy, and he's not
Hmm.
doing as much as he did, when he was pushing the Beatles hard to make Abbey Road. Well, I'm doing that, but I'm also trying hard to make music with my family. So I'm having kind of the best of both worlds here, and I just really love it when they're around. Every moment they're around, I just I'm having the best part of my day, really.
Yeah, I think
Nice.
you're really good at giving us a gentle push. Like we, we're busy with other stuff a lot of the time, so we do need to be pushed to make sure we're tight and rehearsed. But it's not a forcing situation. It's a like let's get our act together kind of
Mhm.
Yeah.
situation. Yeah.
During COVID, we were home, for 2 years basically, whereas a lot of bands just could not get together. It was not possible. So we just, it didn't seem like work, but we did play, every other day or maybe 5 days a week, 4 days a week. Plus, we were making a video show. We had our own little, kind of like the Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour,
Meh.
except it was Secret Monkey Weekend,
Mhm.
Smart Brothers. And, that kept us busy and focused on music too. So,
Nice. And then I'm a avid reader of album liner notes. But this is the first time in going through liner notes for an album I've ever seen the title Dog and Cat Sitter in there. And I'm
that's
wondering
very
how
important.
how did that particular one make it in there?
Well, Laura insisted on it. That's her brother,
Okay.
Thomas. And, he does make it possible for us to be gone, past midnight sometimes out of town. Um, our dogs are the reason we recorded the album in Durham. We had an elderly dog for the last album, and, we knew she would be fine, but these pups were fairly young. So we decided let's record it in Durham at Magnetic Sounds at
Mhm.
Lakeside Shopping Center with Dave Tilley, and Don Dixon. But we wanted to be home for the dogs every night. And the last album, we were at Winston-Salem with Mitch Easter and Don. So we were sleeping at the guest house, but we just didn't want to be away from those furry babies. So the dogs are very important to our daily life, and we're all involved, all of us.
Yeah, they were about, I think, 7 months old at that point. So
Six
we
or
didn't
Oh,
want to,
seven.
okay.
yeah, leave them too long, even with
Okay.
our uncle who we love and trust and is very good at his job.
Yeah.
All right. And then I always like to ask, because you've been doing, a bunch of interviews in prep for this album release. Is there anything we haven't discussed or that no one's asked you about that you want to talk about?
Mm.
I think just the mentorship of the people that we sort of in our satellite circle here with,
Hmm.
Peter Holzapfel, Don Dixon, Mitch Easter. Will Rigby co-wrote 2 songs on the first album. He's the drummer from the DBs. And, I just think we have a nice support system. Southern Culture on the Skids have been very supportive of us. And
Nice.
George Hamilton the Fifth from Heggie V. I could go on and on about these bands. Pylon Reenactment Society, It's Snakes with Hope Nichols and Aaron Pitkin from Fetch and Bones. I wanted them to be introduced to those bands that inspired me when I was their age.
Hmm.
And we're lucky enough that they're still playing, every one of them. And I just wanted them to know that there's some marvelous music coming from your own backyard or just down, in Charlotte or whatever, Winston-Salem. And, I just wanted them to kind of have a little bit of that feeling and that excitement I had when I was looking up to them. So that's something that's important to us. And they've all been all very supportive of us.